Now, I have a question for everyone that's watching this video. How many of you eat seafood? And if you do like seafood, how many of you eat lobster? Now, just follow me. And this sounds a little weird, but I want you to just follow me, all right? Now, to me, lobster is probably one of the best forms of seafood. I mean, there's so many things you can do with lobster. You can do fried lobster tails, which is my absolute favorite. You can do lobster bisque. Oh my God, I love lobster bisque. You can do a lobster roll. I mean, there's so many different ways that you can prepare lobster. Now, I know if you're watching this video and you like seafood, you have to like lobster. Lobster is probably one of the most expensive forms of seafood. It probably costs around $10 to $15 a pound. But let me tell you something that you probably didn't know. Do you know that when the colonists first arrived on the shores of New England, there was so much lobster? There was just an abundance of lobster because the lobster would just wash up on the shore. So the only people that would eat lobster, this is back in the 16, 17, 17, 1800s. The only people that would eat lobster at the time were the Indians. And let me tell you, what they would do is that there was so much lobster that they didn't even want to eat the lobster. What they would do, because there was so much of an abundance of lobster, they would take the lobster and they would use it as bait as they went out into the ocean to try to catch their bass. Now, if they didn't catch any bass, they would just eat the lobster then, right? But they would use the lobster as bait in order to try to catch the bass. See, the thing is that at the time, lobsters had a real bad reputation. They had a reputation for being bottom feeders because they would be on the bottom of the ocean floor eating almost anything, right? So people just like reviled lobster. Everybody hated lobster. It was just absolutely the worst food that you could possibly eat. And there was so much of an abundance of it. So people were just like so fed up with eating lobster that the people that were eating it just said, you know what, we're not eating it anymore. So what they would do during the time was that they would actually feed the lobster to the livestock, to their cows and their horses and whatnot. They would feed it to the poor. They would feed it to the criminals. All the people that were in jail, they would feed them lobster. They would feed it to the indentured servants. And they would also feed the lobster to the slaves. All right? So lobster became associated with lower class people. So at the time, the only people that were eating lobster were just all lower class people. Let me tell you, it got so bad that indentured servants in one Massachusetts town, they sued their owners, right? They sued their owners because the owners were feeding them so much lobster. So they actually took their owners to court and they won where the owners could not feed them lobster more than 3 times a week. All right. Now, this is, like I said, back in the 1800s and whatnot. I think they call this the Victorian area. I'm going to tell you how cheap lobster was. Now, during the time, baked beans, which was a popular food during that time, were selling for 53 cents a pound. Lobster was selling for 11 cents a pound at the time. 11 cents a pound. And baked beans, can you imagine that? Baked beans are going for 53 cents a pound and lobster is selling for 11 cents a pound. Even at that time, chicken was going for almost 2 or 3 times more than what lobster was going for. People would actually feed the lobster to their cats, all right? No one would dare ever serve it to their friends, to any sort of dinner guest or whatnot. And then something strange happened. Back in the 1870s, right, during the tourist season, a lot of rich people would come into Boston from New York and from Washington. And for some reason, someone started serving them lobster and they loved it. They would come in during the summers to get away from the heat. And like I said, someone started feeding them the lobsters, or maybe because there was such an abundance of lobster, they started eating the lobster and they loved it. So much so that when they went back home to Washington and New York and all the different places that they came from, they said, you know what? We want some of that lobster, right? They were craving for the baked beans. I guess at the time, the popular dish was baked beans and broiled lobster. So they were absolutely craving for baked beans and broiled lobster. And what ended up happening because of this led to the popularization of canned lobster. And this helped to jumpstart the whole Maine fishing industry. So the reason why I share this story, because as we all know now, lobster is almost like a delicacy. Everybody wants to eat lobster. People that eat meat or eat seafood love lobster. It's, when you go to the expensive restaurants, it's probably one of the highest priced menu items. And here it is, 200 years ago, nobody wanted to eat it. Not even the slaves, not even the indentured servant, not even the prisoners. No one wanted to eat it, but now everybody wants to eat it. And this is such a clear example that if you have a product or a service or something that you're doing and you think that right now nobody wants it, everyone is rejecting it, keep holding on. Keep holding on, because guess what? Your product could turn around just like lobster did. All right. Your product could turn up. Maybe you're just not getting it to the right audience. So maybe you need to sit back, take a stock of maybe the audience that you're getting it. There's so much of it around in your area or wherever you're at, but you can take whatever your product, your service, or whatever it is you're doing to a whole nother audience. And then now your product or service or your talents or whatever can become amazing to them because they've never experienced it before. Because there's someone right now that's watching this video that they're trying to market something, they're trying to offer their services to a group of people that are so used to it. And they're probably looking at it just like the lobster. They think that, you know what, we don't need this. We're so sick and tired of it. But if you take your product or service somewhere else to these people over here, it will blow up just like lobster did. Hope you guys got something from that video, and I'll see you next week.